Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Cardboard Cave Podcast. I will be your host, Jean Paul Livoy, also known as JP, and I will be joined by my co-host.
Me.
There you go.
The King of the Goblins. How's it going, my dude?
How's it going? I'm joined by Chris. We were going to have a Commander night, but a little few technical and also physical. You know, our life happens, and we can't do the Commander night. But we're gonna cover a few of the things, few news, and more Brothers War content. So I feel like maybe we should start with the news because I feel like that's a bit more impactful.
All right, I guess we will. Part of what we found, or I guess I was checking out this week, was the fact that the OG dual lands dropped in price. This came to us via MTG Rocks. I was browsing their site earlier, and I stumbled upon this wonderful article. MTG's best dual lands plummet by 50% due to player outrage? Question mark. Now, long story short, you can always go to the article and read it yourself. But ever since that the 30th anniversary thing was announced, you know, the glorified proxy set. Well, not even glorified, just straight up proxies, right? We've already discussed this. People started panic selling their dual lands, and they have tanked up to like a 50%. So we're talking about like stuff like Underground Sea. Being at a price point of like $700-800, and then people started selling it at somewhere between $500-400, as you can see like in some of the images here, right? Same thing goes for Tundra. He's now selling for around 400, and you can get the damage one for like around $200, which is a huge price decrease. And then it does mention over here that there's an exception to the rule, which is Volcanic Island, which I was kind of surprised about, to be honest. Which was basically unaffected by the price drop. It says that it only dropped $200, which again is a pretty significant price drop either way, but it's not a 50% price drop as it did happen like with some of the other lands. Now, I guess this just really solidifies what we've talked about before here in the podcast. It's like, you know, that this is going to have what they did with Magic, with the Magic 30th anniversary proxy bundle, is just something that is going to have effects on the game that Wizards didn't expect, and even the community just didn't expect, even with the announcement. Like I didn't expect dual lands to drop by 50%. That sounds insane to me. So this definitely came as a surprise. I don't know if you got something to say about it, JP.
I saw the article, and one of the things they mention is that basically there's no easy money to be made with old Magic cards anymore. A lot of the industries in just general in the world are coming back to a more normal state, and like when the chips, there's a chip shortage in the entire world, all the chips skyrocketed in price, and those people that actually had those chips made massive profits. Now, if now those type of companies are just like slowly getting back to what normal is, and during the pandemic, all of these things just skyrocketed. Technically a bit before the pandemic, but is like basically during the pandemic, everything just skyrocketed. And now that everything's just kind of slowly, for the most part, coming back to normal, the prices are like going down. So uh, this, in addition to the 30 proxy set, the Magic 30 proxy set, is one of the reasons why I feel like everything just kind of plummeted down. Uh,
Would you say that this is like a perfect time to buy a lot of these like
if
luxury like cards?
if you want them, then yes, but it's still a lot of money. It's
Hmm.
still a massive amount of money, and honestly, they don't warp the game as easily as something like a fetch land can.
Hmm.
So it's just like you say, it's a luxury. It's a luxury to have these, but it's not necessary.
So would you say like definitely buy fetch lands over buying the dual lands in this case?
Yes, the fetch lands are still very much cheap.
Hmm. Definitely in comparison to like the prices, talking about like 400 $500 for a land, while you can just
It's like,
spend that
oh,
same amount on a full set of fetch lands.
this card used to be $800. Now it's $400. I might as well buy one. Is like, no, at $400, it's so much money.
I do feel like if you have if you have the resources, I do think that it's quote unquote a steal in the sense that these are things that are going to go back up in price because again, regardless of how you look at it, the Magic 30 lands are still not tournament legal. So it's not like you can do much with them anyway. So if you're the kind of person who has the funds and has like the people to play like legacy or other or like really high level commander in which it's actually kind of worth getting these lands, whereas a collector's item, I'd say go ahead, but definitely yeah, same page, just you're better off just buying a full set of fetch lands than just buying a single dual land. You're just going to have more functionality out of it in general. Speaking of, uh, if some of you guys are just more like in the budget section, um, there's one thing I can definitely recommend. As you know, back in the Dominaria United set, we got like these dual lands that enter the battlefield tapped, and I think that a great solution if you want to look for some mana fixing is altar sleeves. You could just probably get one of those new enter tap dual lands, put a volcanic island skin on it, make it look all pretty, and just hey, it's just a proxy that you're going to use to be playing with your friends. So great idea. Also, you can make all of your other commander decks look freaking amazing. Just get some really cool like Bola Citadel altars. You can actually see Thrasios altar up in the top right corner, if I'm not mistaken. Is that Thrasios or is that
Kumena.
It's not Thrasios or Kamena? It looks more like Kamena. You're right. But point is, you can make your decks look freaking awesome, and you can also use our link from our link tree, or use Cardboard Cave MTG code. That way, you can get yourself a discount. That'll also help us a lot, so we can keep bringing you guys some quality content. Now, moving on to the next thing that we came here to talk about, those Brothers Wars decks.
Yeah.
The Brothers War Commander decks. Now, I'm probably one of those guys who I would love to buy both, obviously, but I am most definitely going to try to get my hands on Urza's Iron Alliance. We obviously start off with Urza Chief Artificer, which you've got the tiny image over here. We've already seen this card before more than a few times. It's freaking amazing. It's a three-colored Urza. And I think it's really fun because it still gives you the ability to like the colors give you the ability to do lots of fun stuff within artifacts in general. Be able to search up like a lot of the stuff that you need using black. Blue has a lot of really useful tools in general for like artifacts. Being able to reduce costs and stuff like that. And white is just all the like the stacks element of it. So that's just from the perspective of like trying to build a deck based off of Urza Chief Artificer rather than actually going with like playing the deck in itself. So I think it's really cool. I mean, it gives artifact creatures you control menace, and it has affinity for artifacts, so it's definitely something like you'll start off with something like a Soul Ring, maybe if you have like a really good start, right? So like a Soul Ring and what's it called? An Arcane Signet, and then you'll probably be able to have Urza Chief Artificer, a 6 mana cost commander coming down in like turn 2 or 3, which I think is freaking great. Baleful Strix is in there for some card draw. You got Ethereum Sculptor because you obviously need that artifact cost reduction. Another thing that I really like about it is that we're going to see a lot of cards in Retro Frame. I'm not sure if the entire deck is in
The
Retro Frame, but
entire deck,
okay, then that's
the
freaking amazing.
entirety of the deck is in a retro frame art.
Ooh, I'm actually very excited about that. We got Scholar of New Horizons, which is one of those new cards that's getting printed in there.
Sandwell
Right?
Avenger Ace is also
Ooh,
new.
Sandwell, which one is that? I don't know. I haven't seen that one.
Uh,
Oh, we got Thanos Solemn Survivor, which we talked about in one of the previous episodes. So I think it's a friggin' amazing card.
Wreck
Wreck
Hunter is a
Hunter
new
looks
card.
new. Okay, so it says
It's a pretty
mhm,
strong card, if I'm not mistaken.
comes down for two
Uh,
black. He has flash. Enters the battlefield. Choose target player. You create a tapped Power Stone token for each non-land card in that player's graveyard that was put there from the battlefield this turn. I think that's pretty interesting. I mean, maybe like put it down after a board wipe, or maybe if someone's playing a sacrifice deck.
this deck has one, two. I think it has like 3 board wipes.
Interesting. That seems pretty standard for like any deck that's looking to just kind of be creature heavy and then just kind of run board wipes. In general, I kind of make it a general rule to just run around 3 board wipes in my
Yeah,
decks because
three,
it
three
doesn't
is
feel
like
like too much or too
the
little.
perfect. Yeah, 3 is like the perfect number for me.
All right, this guy also seems new. That's Lashiel Clockwork Scholar prevents
No,
spell.
he was
Oh, really?
first. Yeah, no, he was first from the Osgir the Reconstructor deck.
Oh, really? I did not
Yeah,
know that.
he's a pretty
That's
good.
kind of
He's
cool.
also pretty good. He gives white card draw.
Psymaster Thopter is just being a friggin'
Hey, look at
excellent.
Orengo.
Yeah.
Always it's like it's just him. A reprint of Alayla Master.
Master Artful
Yeah,
Provocateur.
Artful Provocateur. Filigree Attendant, Nominal Archangel, Psalm Simulacrum, Teshar's Ancestors, Apostle, Vidalcan Humiliator. I think this is also
To reprint as well.
it's a reprint. I think the new card is a Hexavus.
Yes. It enters the battlefield with 6+1/+1 counters on it. You can remove one to put a flying counter on another target creature. I think that's really interesting. The fact that it just puts flying counters on things instead of giving something flying until the end of the turn. I
Yeah,
think it's a pretty good example. Maybe not exactly an example of power creep, but definitely something that's much more impactful than just giving it flying until the end of turn. Because you don't have to like keep investing in making that creature flying. It just gains flying as long as it has the counter.
yeah.
Marionette Master, so you can start comboing off if you have the. I forgot the name of the card right now, but you know which one I'm talking about.
You got Noxious Gearhold, Sharding Sphinx, Sharoom the Hegemon, Shimmer Dragon, Steel Hellkite, Wire Surgeons, which is a new card.
Ooh, so
Each
that comes
Yeah,
down.
each
Yeah, I got
artifact
it.
feature in your graveyard has a Encore, and its Encore cost is equal to its mana cost. So Encore is you exile it from your graveyard, create a token for each opponent you have, and they gain haste.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to sacrifice them at the beginning of the next end step.
Angel
Angel Ruins
Ruins.
is a reprint, Mere Battlesphere, and Thought Monitor. In terms of spells, we get Preordained, Swords to Plowshares, Despark. March of Progress was a new card. It says choose target artifact creature you control. For each creature chosen this way, create a token that's a copy, and it has Overload for 7.
That's actually a really interesting card. That's potentially a win con, especially in a deck like what's it called, like Brutaclad.
Yes.
This would be insane.
Sphinx's Revelation, which with new art. Look at that art.
Yeah,
Whoa, that art is trippy.
Yeah, I have like I think I guess the face in the background is supposed to be the Sphinx, but it doesn't even look like a Sphinx. It just looks amazing in general, though.
Yeah. One with the machine, Urza's Ruined Blast, Austere Command, and Phyrexian Rebirth. This deck is just mostly focused on the artifact creatures, but we do have just normal artifacts like Relic of Progenitus, a Skull Clamp, Soul Ring, Arcane Signet, Azorius Signet, Cranial Plating, Demir Signet, Caleb's Music Box was a new card. I'm pretty sure we covered it, but I
Yes.
really like this card. So what it does is you pay it's 2 mana legendary artifact, pay 1 white and tap it. You look at the top card of your library and then you exile it face down. And the second ability is you can tap the music box and play cards from the exile.
Metal Torque,
Uh, this brings a
fantastic
little Metal
reprint.
Torque, an Orzhov Signet, Swiftfoot Boots, Thought Vessel, and Thopter Shop, which is a new card, if I'm not mistaken. Whenever one or more artifact creatures you control die, draw a card. This ability triggers only once each turn. And you can make a 1/1 color Thopter artifact creature token with
I'm
fly.
actually really sad that it's two and a white and not two and a black because this would have been amazing for Necrons. Would have been insane for the Necron deck.
Yeah. So then we have enchantments for Tempered Steel, Bident of Thassa, and Thopter Spy Network.
Can we talk about how pretty that Biden of Thassa looks though? Like that art.
Yes.
Oh man, that's like one of the coolest Thassa arts I've seen. Like that I actually really like.
And then we have the lands. Uh, the mana base on these decks is decent. Uh, One of the primary things is, of course, everything is like the retro frame. So a lot of these cards are getting that treatment for the first time, and for the most part, uh, it's a good mana base. It's a good. It's a pretty decent mana base.
Like I
No,
feel like the mana base won't have you starving for colors. Maybe just starving for like the fact that there's a lot of lands that enter tapped, but that's kind of expected from a pre-con to a certain extent.
yeah. Uh, I'll reserve my comments on both decks until we cover the next deck, but
Sure thing.
I have opinions on this deck.
On the Urza deck, or you mean the
The
Mishra
Urza
deck?
deck, yeah, the Urza deck.
All right. So let's move on to Mishra's Burnished Banner. Starting off with Mishra, an Eminent One, being the face commander. At the beginning of combat on your turn, create a token that's a copy of target non-creature artifact you control, except its name is Mishra's War Form, and it's a 4/4 construct artifact creature. In addition to its other types, it gains haste until the end of the turn. Sacrifice it at the beginning of the next end step. Fun things that you can do with this off the top of my head. Anything that would end your turn. That one, I think it's a Grixis like a goblin, right? The one that ends your turn.
No, she is Grixis, but she's an ogre.
Oh, my bad.
Obeka. Yeah,
Yeah.
Obeka.
So Obeka, something like Obeka, or I forgot the name of the other one. Something of the
Sundial of the Infinite.
Sundial of the Infinite. There we go. Really good cards to just kind of start getting being able to keep those tokens that you make on the battlefield. Not to mention that it's creating like this gets by the legendary rule by simply making it another object in general. So this I find Mishra really exciting. I want Urza because it's Urza, but Mishra is honestly the more exciting of the two, at least the face commanders in my opinion.
So we got Slowbad
The
Goblin Tinkerer.
saddest the saddest goblin in all of Magic history.
Yeah. Audacious Reshapers. Emery, Lurker of the Lock. Fane the Broker. Fareed Enterprising Salvager, which is a new card. It says whenever a non-token artifact you control is put into the graveyard from the battlefield, create a colorless artifact token named Scrap. You can pay 1 and a red to sacrifice an artifact and choose one. Put a +1/+1 counter on Fareed and it gains Menace until end of turn. You can go target creature or you can discard a card and draw a card. I actually like Fareed a lot.
Yeah, I like that he kind of feeds himself essentially by just creating the scrap tokens. Like whenever something dies, you can just keep sacrificing the scrap tokens to his ability, which I assume was the whole point and design of the
Yeah.
card. But it's just really cool.
And We have a reprint of Muzio, Visionary Architect, Silas Wren, Seeker Adept, Glint Raker, which is a new card, 3 in a blue, feature Drake 1/3 flying, Glint, Glint Rake, Glint Raker gets plus X plus 0, where X is the highest mana value among artifacts you control, and whenever it deals combat damage, you may reveal that many cards from the top of your library, put an artifact revealed this way into your hand, and the rest into the bottom. Actually, no, into the
I'm so
graveyard.
dis. Oh, ooh, that's actually not bad.
Yeah.
I also thought it was just gonna like say to the bottom, and I'm actually surprised that it said it sends it to the graveyard. I'm a little bit disappointed that it doesn't put it onto the battlefield, but maybe that would be a little bit too much.
Yeah. Joyra Weatherlight Captain.
Because of course you can't have a deck that has blue and red in it and artifacts without a Joyra planes like a Joyra creature in it.
Then we have Master Transmuter, Padim, Console of Innovation, Traxxas Scourge of Krug, Ashnod the Uncaring, which is a new card. I'm pretty sure I've talked about Ashnod way too much.
Baby girl.
You mentioned Broodyclad, and there's a Broodyclad in this deck.
Interesting. I did not know that. That actually caught me by surprise. Like a lot of the other cards, I was just like, yeah, that's. I'm pretty sure that was in there, but Broody Clad actually caught me by surprise here. That's really cool. That's really good.
So then we have Geth, Lord of the Vault, Scavenged Brawler, Hulkite Igniter, Herald of Anguish, Workshop Elders. So Scavenged Brawler is also a new card. It has Flying Vigilance, Trample, Lifelink, and you can exile it from their graveyard to give it a creature, 4+1 counters, and Flying counter, Vigilance counter, Trample counter, and Lifelink counter.
Oh wait, which
So
one? Which one was that? Hold on.
Scavenged Brawler.
Scavenge Brawler. I actually don't see him here. Oh, there he is. Oh, I thought he was a reprint. He kind of looked
No.
like another card. Huh.
And Workshop Elders
Cool.
is a new card as well.
I
Artifact
do,
creatures you control
I do just want to
flying.
like mention that you can only activate that ability as a sorcery, so it's not as exciting as it should be, but it's
Yeah.
cool.
At the beginning of your combat on your turn, you may have target non-creature artifact you control become a 0/0 artifact creature. If you do, put 4+1 counters on it. For 7 mana, it's a bit but yeah,
Yeah, I mean,
it's
you're giving artifact creatures you control flying, but are you really going to be making enough artifact creatures to justify like 7 mana?
I don't know. Blast Furnace Hellkite is cool shit. It has artifact offering, so it has the offering mechanic introduced in Kamigawa, original Kamigawa, and so you sacrifice. You can cast it as though it had flash by sacrificing an artifact and paying the mana difference. So if I sacrifice something from 5 mana, then I can just pay 4 mana for this.
Insane, to be honest.
And it says flying double strike creatures attacking your opponents have double strike.
Which I think is really exciting, just in case like some of the listeners or viewers haven't caught on. This means that anyone attacking your opponents the creatures is gonna gain double strike. So that's not just you, but that's also the Jetmir that's playing across the table, and that's also like the other guy playing on the other side, which I think just makes really fun. Like everyone tries to smack everybody to death situations while kind of like easy, while making yourself easy to ignore at times. Because oh, he's giving me double strike. Let me not smack his face.
Then we have Metalwork Colossus as the last creature. This deck is a bit more heavy on the non-creature spells. So we have Faithless Looting, Abrade, Expressive Iteration, Feed the Swarm, Bedevil, Chaos Warp, Thirst for Knowledge, Factor Fiction, Thoughtcast, Blasphemous Act, and the new card being Terrasseur's Devastation. It's X2 black and double black, so X and 4 mana. You lose X life and create X tapped Power Stone tokens. Then all creatures get -1/-1 for each artifact you control.
That's a really fun wipe, man.
You can pay
That's the
4
way I
mana
see
and it's
it.
-1/-1 for each creature. Sorry, for each artifact you control.
Mm-hmm.
The X is just anything additional you want to pay.
Yep.
Then we have the artifacts at Executioner's Capsule, Nihil Spellbomb, Soul Ring, Wayfarer's Bauble, Arcane Signet, Dimir Signet, Felwar Stone, Ichor Wellspring, Idol of Oblivion, Mind Stone, Mnemonic Sphere, Mycosynth Wellspring, Oni Cult Anvil, Prophetic Prism, Recto Signet, Servo Schematic, Strionic Resonator, which is a pretty damn cool art,
Yeah.
Commander Sphere, Curse Totem,
Chris
Oblivion
Mirror.
Stone, which is pretty interesting as another board wipe. Hedron Archive, Lithoform Engine as another way to copy triggered abilities. Machines God's Effigy. This is a new card. It's
Mm-hmm.
4 mana, an artifact. You may have it enter as a copy of any creature on the battlefield, except it's an artifact in addition and has tap, add blue. Actually, this just turns it into an artifact. It just gains it enters as a copy of a creature, except it's just an artifact.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a creature.
That's kind of insane, not gonna lie.
And we have I think this, other than Astronaut the Uncaring, I think this is my favorite card of the entire Commander.
The
Smelting
smelting bat.
Bat. Yeah. So it's 4 mana, an artifact, and you pay 1 mana to tap it and sacrifice another artifact. Reveal the top 8 cards of your library. Put up to 2 non-creature artifact cards with total mana value less than or equal to the sacrifice artifact's mana value from among them onto the battlefield, and the rest in the bottom of your library in a random order. So if I sacrifice an Ichor Wellspring, which is 2 mana, I can look at the top 8 cards and put a 0 mana artifact and a 2 mana artifact, or a 1 mana artifact and a 1 mana artifact.
Mm-hmm.
The reason I like this so much is because with Ashnod the Uncaring in the deck, you could do that twice.
Mm-hmm.
So you sacrifice 1 artifact and potentially get 4.
Mm-hmm.
So that's really good.
That, like, at worst you get 2, and in in a really value generating scenario you get 4. So this is really good.
Then we have Thran Dynamo, Trading Post, Mirrorworks, which is an interesting reprint. Dreamstone Hedron, Spine of Ishsa, and Wondrous Crucible, which is another new card. Permanents you control have Ward 2. At the beginning of your end step, mill 2 cards, then exile a non-land card at random from your graveyard. Copy it. Cast the copy without paying the mana cost.
Mm-hmm.
And then we have the lands.
We're kind of looking at basically the same thing we were looking at with the Urza deck, at least in terms of the lands. But in terms of the contents of the deck, I think there is a glaring difference.
What do you feel is better?
I feel like in general, there's just more value in Mishra's deck. It just seems like a better deck, to be honest.
So I disagree, in a way.
Really? Okay.
So I feel like Urza's Iron Alliance, the deck is better built.
Okay.
The deck out of the box will be better built, in my opinion. It is better built, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
But Mishra has power cards.
Yeah.
You get Broody-Clad, Geth. You get like 6 mana, 7 mana, 8 mana, 11 mana. You know.
Mm-hmm.
You get big beefy stuff and a lot of like utility stuff. Meanwhile, in Urza's deck, you get a bit more streamlined.
Mm-hmm.
You want a lot of artifact creatures. It runs 36 creatures.
Yeah.
A lot of the pieces synergize with themselves. I'm like Bident of Thassa, Thopter Spy Network. We're gonna draw you enough cards. Kayla's Music Box is gonna draw you cards. Belful Strix is gonna draw you cards. In a way, Tano Solemn Survivor can give you cards. Psy Master Thopters can give you cards. Low Shield draws you cards. Like, there's so much card draw in Urza's Iron Alliance that, and like it brings Sphinx's Revelation as well. There's so much good card draw in addition to the 3 good board wipes and
Mm,
the more focused theme on artifact creatures.
yeah.
I feel like Mishra said, "Oh wait, I want to make copies of artifacts, so let's just have cool, big, beefy artifacts, which is cool, but you need them in play to like
To be able to really get any value out of them.
to get value out of them. So you have to
And by,
get them in
by,
play
by the time
first."
you can get your big stuff in play, well, Urza's deck can probably smack the living crap out of you to like down to
Yes,
20 life by the time you're like doing something
I feel
meaningful.
like the Mishra deck is stronger when like
Like,
out of the two of them, Mishra will be stronger if you build around him.
mhm,
But the deck out of the box, the Urza one is stronger.
you know, I see what you mean. I guess I'm just like more focused on like all the potential that like a lot of these cards have, more than focused on like what the deck looks like out of the box, I suppose. Because
Yeah,
automatically, like I'm looking at Mishra, I'm looking at Ashnod. Broody Clad is freaking insane, but yeah, like the mana costs are what are freaking huge. Like literally half of
it
the creatures are basically just like more than four converted mana costs and above.
it does bring a decent amount of ramp, but I don't think it's enough.
Mm.
It might be. I might be wrong, but it brings a lot of beefy, strong artifacts. That's for sure.
Like I feel like in a certain way, um, the way the decks are built just kind of represent the two brothers really well in the fact that Mishra, at least at the beginning, when you kind of read through the story, Mishra definitely had a slower start than Urza. Like Urza automatically seemed like this like amazing prodigy, making like he was the one who discovered the caves of Kolios essentially and discovered like the location of the Power Stones. Meanwhile, Mishra was always like a bit more brash, but definitely gained like a lot more power as he grew. So they just kind of going into like the fact that like the later you get into the game with the Mishra deck and you start dropping like more powerful and scary stuff, um, like the more dangerous it just gets, right? Which again just really represents the story really well in the case that like at the beginning, like Mishra was very, I mean, Urza was like very dismissive of Mishra, always seeing him as someone who was like, you're like my brother, you're my baby brother, you're kind of like below me, so whatever. Then suddenly Mishra just starts, climbing up in the world and making these powerful machines, and he eventually secretly gets in league with Phyrexia and becomes a very scary, scary opponent to Mishra. So I think to Urza, I mean. So I think that's that kind of like that about the two decks. They really embody like the two characters really well.
I can agree.
So, JP, anything else you have in mind?
Yes. So the entirety of the Brothers War set was revealed, and we covered for the most part everything that's been important. We might have missed a few during the last podcast, but what I really want to cover is like the best of the rest in terms of commons and uncommons we didn't cover because I saw a common that really shocked me on how strong it is, and there's a thread about it, but it's a stupid card. So the card is called Recommission. One and a white, sorcery. Return target artifact or creature card with mana value 3 or less from your graveyard to the battlefield. If a creature enters the battlefield this way, it enters with an additional +1/+1 counter on it.
First off,
Two,
it's basically like a better Unearth in white up to a
two
certain
mana,
point.
two mana on Earth.
Yeah.
2 mana on Earth in white
Mm-hmm.
is severely, severely like on like I feel like this card is a lot stronger than what people
You could almost say that it's a better persist up to a certain degree.
up to a certain degree. Persist just is any non-legendary creature, but for the most
Mm-hmm.
part, yeah. Uh, a lot of the valuable creatures are 3 mana or less in
Mm-hmm.
like higher powered settings.
Yeah. And
So
being able to have the option of artifacts or creatures, I think, is really good, especially in that range. Because if just me thinking off the top of my head, the kind of decks that I play in white, like I'll play stacks, and if you get rid of my Winter Orb or of my like Stasis Orb, I'll just bring it back with that. You know what I mean?
yeah,
It can really bring back some really impactful pieces, and especially in white, like you said, it's just in white is it's really strong. I also really like the other card. I forgot the name right now, but the one that's essentially a combination of Silence and Rest in Peace. I like to call it Rest in Silence. The card makes it so that your opponent can't keep casting spells in his turn, but also I think exiles their graveyard or can't target cards in their graveyard. I gotta double check like the effect once more, but I just know that I instantly saw it and I'm like I gotta get my hands on it. Like that's insane.
well, there's one card. Another card I was interested in is Symmetry Matrix. 4 mana artifact. Whenever a creature with power equal to its toughness enters the battlefield under your control, you may pay 1. If you do, draw a card. I play a creature, I pay 1, I draw a card. As long as their power and toughness are equal. For mono white, maybe even mono green, mono red, this is stupid. And I am very much interested if this card actually sees, you know, some amount of play. Another card is Defabricate. 1 and a blue for an instant, and you choose one. Counter target artifact or enchantment spell. If a spell is countered this way, exile it instead of putting it into its owner's graveyard. Or counter target activated or triggered ability. This one hurts.
This one to me is amazing. I absolutely love this card. I mean, it's a really good counter spell. It's uncommon.
You remember
It's almost better than I wouldn't say necessarily better, but definitely like a really good tool when compared to something like oh, what's it called? The one that also like it counters legendaries and
Tail's
trigger
End.
ability. Tail's End. I think
Yes.
it's a tool that's along those lines, but the fact that it can counter artifact or enchantment spells is pretty good in my opinion, and then just exiles them too. So I don't
Remember?
know. This is really good to me.
Do you remember the last time you stifled Osgir's trigger?
Oh yeah.
Remember dying the next turn? Or 2 turns later because I was really mad? I was like,
Yep.
yeah, you're dead. You're dead. You just moving on. I think these are just cards I personally liked, but it's like they're not. Actually, one of them is actually interesting for to
Oh, here it
discuss.
is, the one that I
So
was talking about earlier, Calamity's Wake. Sorry to interrupt, but here we go. Exile all
yeah,
graveyards. Players can't cast non-creature spells this turn. Exile Calamity's Wake. It's almost a shame that this thing gets exiled, but oh man, like do something like put it back in your hand with Narset's Reversal and watch everyone just like cry knowing that their non-creature spells are going to be worth crap next turn. Oh, this is great, man.
so another card I'm interested in is Combat Courier. It's a common. It's a 1 mana 1/1. You pay 2 mana to sacrifice the courier and draw a card, and it has Unearth for 1 blue. Do you think this is strong enough for Ashnod?
Combat Courier. Let me like take a
Oh,
good look
it's
at
a
it.
1 mana 1/1 that you can pay 2 mana to sacrifice it and draw a card, and it has
Hmm.
Unearth, so you can do it again.
Yeah,
You can have it lay in your graveyard, unearth it, draw 2 cards. That's for 3 mana,
I definitely
and
don't
have
think
a trigger.
it's going to be bad in Ashnod.
It's not.
The fact that you get to draw 2 cards off of 2 mana, like it's well, I mean, technically 3 mana, but I think it's still pretty good. There's no like usually when you pay 3 cards to draw 2 cards, you have to like discard a card or something. So I think this is pretty solid in general. And then if you do it for the
Jumping
unearth
through hoops
cost
to
instead,
like jumping through hoops to do a divination is sounds not that good, but
it doesn't sound that good, but at the end of the day, you're still getting like value from stuff that you've already used
It's
essentially because it's
yeah,
going to
it's
be in
one
your
card for
graveyard.
four. Sorry, it's one card and it nets me 4 cards if I have an Ashnod out.
Exactly, and even without having the Ashnod out, just having a creature on the battlefield that you can sack to draw a card, I think, is more impactful than people like initially think.
Yes.
Because, for example, you have like a lot of those artifacts that come down for two, and when they either when you sacrifice it or whatever, you can. I forget the name of the card. You use it a lot in Osgear too.
Yeah, Ichor
Um,
Wellspring, draw a card.
yeah,
When it
exactly.
enters, draw a card. When it leaves, draw cards. There's one in the Mishra deck.
Yeah,
Uh,
exactly.
Speaking of impactful moments and of Ashnod, the next card is basically the turning event of the war.
Hmm.
I found this card
Silence.
interesting. It's Ashnod's Intervention. It's 1 black for an instant. Until end of turn, target creature gets +2/+0 and gains when this creature dies or is put into exile from the battlefield. Return it to its owner's hand. Now, the 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 flavor text is: Listen, duck. Gix is everywhere, playing every side. Mishra won't listen, but perhaps Urza will. The moment Ashnod liberates Tanos.
Mm-hmm.
Also, yes, she calls Tanos duck because she's like weirdly infatuated with him.
It's kind of cute, not gonna lie.
Except when you
Yeah.
realize she tortures him.
But yeah, I mean, it's a toxic relationship, but
Could have been
come on.
me.
Shit.
Uh,
It's like that one like 4chan memes be like, God, I wish that were me.
and next card is Gurgling Anointer. Uh, Gurgling Anointer is 2 and a black for a 1/3 flyer. That's why it interested me for at first. Is it's a 3 mana 1/3 flyer, which with 2 upsides. It's a Phyrexian Horror. Whenever you draw your second card each turn, put a +1 counter on Gurgling Anointer. Whenever Gurgling Anointer dies, return target creature card with mana value less than or equal to Gurgling Anointer's power from the graveyard to the battlefield. There's another card in this set that does this exact same thing. This
Interesting.
will be an archetype for black in the pre-release for easily,
Hmm. A 1/3 flyer that bumps itself just for drawing cards. I think, yeah,
and reanimate something.
yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's actually really fun to put in a deck like Tabarax. To be honest, really fun, especially since like, you can just kind of like sack Shadow Moon Apostles to be able to draw cards off of them. No, that's pretty interesting.
Speaking of pre-release meta, I think this is actually a card that we'll see play in standard.
The Anointer, or the one that you're going to mention
No,
next?
yeah, this next card, Misery's Shadow. It's 1 and a black for a creature shade. If a creature an opponent controls would die, exile it instead. It's a 2/2, and it has the ability pay 1 mana, and it gets +1/+1 until end of turn.
Oh, yes, yes, yes. I remember seeing someone talk about this as being a really good example of power creep.
Yeah,
I forgot the name of
the
both
the
the,
original
the
there's another card that
Contemplator
there's
and the
another
card.
card that
But
does this exact thing. It's double black and the ability is 1 black to activate, and it gives +1/+1.
yeah, and it's a
And,
2/1
and,
instead
and
of a 2/2.
yeah, and it dominated standard when it was out. So maybe this will do stuff in like mono black aggro, which this set has brought a lot of like red black mono black type stuff for aggressive beatdown. So
Yeah,
kind of really excited for that.
I like
It's
that
one of my
that I've noticed that a lot of cards in the set like deal a lot with graveyards, whether it's bringing stuff back or exiling graveyards or making sure that your opponent doesn't get stuff in their graveyard. So I'd be really excited to actually see a lot more like graveyard focused decks because right now there's a lot of domination from like going wide, like creature strategies, like mono white aggro is insane. Mono black aggro is just along the same lines, and there's a lot of removal for like a lot. There's just like a lot of spot removal that's moving around. and I think that being able to exile stuff will definitely, to a certain degree, affect a lot of some of the mono black strategies that we had that are currently running around in standard. But at the same time, we there's also like a lot of like value creatures, I guess, in black that are that'll definitely benefit, especially from stuff like Misery Shadow. So who knows? I don't know. I'm actually kind of excited to see how standard changes with the set, because I think it is gonna be somewhat impactful.
Yeah, and the last card, which is also a card that I just realized is it is not a creature. It is Mishra's Research Desk. So it's an artifact, and you can pay 1 mana to tap it and sacrifice Mishra's Research Desk. You exile the top 2 cards of your library, choose one of them. Until end of turn, until your end of your next turn, you may play that card. I find this interesting because it has Unearth.
Hmm. A non-creature card that has Unearth. I actually did not expect that. Just straight up, I just didn't expect a non-creature card to have Unearth.
Basically, yeah, and that's
That's
a
that's
mess of a
interesting.
desk.
Yeah. Hey man, Mishra is here to kick ass and take names. You know, like I don't expect him to have a nice desk. He is most definitely the ADHD kid in between the two. And that sounds like a joke, but actually, Mishra in his youth tended to be very impulsive, and when he grows up, he still has a lot of that impulsiveness because he tends to be really emotional and easily goaded by his brother Urza, because Urza always has like this high and mighty, like
I'm
very
better
like
than you stance.
exactly. He always seems like really cool, calm, and collected, and always just sure of like how much better he is than
Arrogant.
Mishra. Yeah, super arrogant. And then like Mishra is just this really like ADHD kid who's just kind of like, you know what? I don't like you. Just fuck off.
Yeah.
Again, just going back to the theme of being able to like exile stuff from the top of your library to play them in like red, I think is a really cool thing that that Wizards has been doing recently with red. Just giving it card advantage that way, even if it isn't like direct like looting or card draw. I don't know. I think it's something that definitely has set red apart in terms of card advantage from the other colors. I don't know. I just find it really cool. That's pretty much it.
I agree. I agree. For the most part, I think those are all my like best for the rest at first glance. Uh, I'm just for the set. What are you excited for the set?
Honestly, I haven't like other than what I've already mentioned, like the Calamities Wake and the Defabricate. Off the top of my head, I guess Urza, man. I just really want to get my hands on all those Urza cards, like the uncommon Urza and even the uncommon Mishra too. I am not super into this set in the sense that I would like to get a box of the set because of the theme of the set, not because I find it to be like super amazing or anything. Even though I like it, like I like it, but there's nothing about it that to me just screams like buy
Get it.
boxes and boxes of the
Get
set.
this. Get this. Yeah.
Mhm.
I find that this set will sell a lot just because of
Because of the theme,
the retro frame artifacts
and the
for
theme in
set
itself is
boosters.
just freaking amazing.
The theme is also very good, and well, for the most part, I'm really excited for one Queen Kayla Bin Krug, one of the first cards ever spoiled.
Ooh, actually,
In
before we jump over to Kayla, since I don't have her on screen at the time being, what do you think of Gix actually
Gix is
being the
strong.
resident mono black player? Really,
Gix is
you think
strong.
he's really strong?
Yes, he can helm a mono black deck very easily.
He
You
can
just
what?
like you can run him as the commander,
Mhm.
and you can just use a lot of low drop evasive creatures to gain you card advantage while also pressuring your opponent's life totals and get to that juicy ability and just you're mono black. Getting to 7 mana is not hard. There's
Mhm.
rituals, all the good lands, Cabal Coffers,
And
Lake of the
even
Dead,
like the staple
Ghosts.
artifact ramp
Like
will get you there.
yeah, like he is good. He is mono black Edric.
I'm not a huge fan of his last ability though. I like it in terms of like, I just like the whole concept of essentially stealing stuff from your opponents like that. But I don't know. I mean,
You
I
see,
I rather kind of draw half my deck for 7 mana. You know what I mean?
yes, but also depending on how strong your opponent's decks are, getting cards for free is a lot. Like it's really good. So the reason I like him a lot more than probably you do is because he lets you play all the cards. You just
Yeah,
play them whenever. You don't have to play them immediately.
yeah.
I played. You remember I had a Lonnie's Cryptozoologist deck. It was a blue-green clue deck that messed around with the opponent's top of the deck.
Mhm.
The reason I did not enjoy that deck as much is because if he would have said tap sacrifice X clues and look at the top of library top cards of your library, you could add a lot of top deck manipulation. But since I had to choose one card from my opponent's side, it always felt bad when I had multiple good options, but I either didn't sacrifice enough clues, or I didn't, or I could only choose one of them. Gix gets around that in the way that he can just get all the cards. He doesn't care about how many cards. You get all of them.
Mhm.
So that's why I like him a lot more.
Understandable. Actually, one of the things I am excited in this setup for is definitely Diabolic Intent as a reprint.
Yes,
Like
yes.
having another accessible mono black tutor.
I don't have.
Excellent.
I missed my chance to get a demonic tutor, so I'm not gonna miss my chance to get this. And this is printed at rare, so I am most definitely getting myself a copy, if not a playset.
Oh hell yeah!
So I was
Another
mentioning,
card that was talk.
yeah.
Oh yeah, go ahead. Go ahead. Go ahead.
So Queen Caleb in Krug,
Someone go look for it directly.
she's one white and red. She's a 2/3, and I'm gonna get the the bundle to get her the one of her the alternate art of her is the bundle card.
Gotcha.
So you can pay 4 mana, tap her, discard your hand, and draw that many cards. Then for each card discarded this way, you choose an artifact or creature cost 1, and do the same for 2 and 3, and put them into play. That's going in Osgear because 1, it's a wheel, 2, it's a reanimation, 3, she looks cool.
Yeah.
4, it's a tap. Actually, 1, it's a wheel, which Osgear loves. 2, it's
It's a
reanimation, which
select.
Osgear
Oh no, never
loves.
mind. That's the other one.
3, it's a tap ability, which Osgear actually cares about because I have a lot of untappers.
Hmm.
Being able to do this multiple times a turn will be a goal.
Definitely. I think it's freaking great. And I like you say it's gonna be a goal, but honestly, in your Osgear deck, I don't think that's gonna be like much of an effort at all.
The detail being, I've been playing a lot more with Osgear recently, and he's just explosive.
Hmm.
The reality of it is that Osgear, my deck is not as strong as a lot of people see it to be. He is just explosive. So I can do a lot of stuff out of nowhere, but then I'm still not doing much to affect you guys. So
Gotcha.
it's whatever. I do want the Ashnod Flesh Mechanist. I
Hmm.
just want her to stay in my binder forever and just stay there.
Never be played. Never
Never, no,
again.
no. She can look at her other version from being played from my binder.
Also, I did kind of want to go over Soul Partition. I think we did mention it because last time we went over all of like the rares in the set.
Yes.
But the more I look at this card, the more I feel a little bit conflicted about it, because at the end of the day, it's essentially a white bounce spell
Basically.
for your opponent. But I do realize that at higher levels of play, this is actually a really good card. You essentially just stop someone from you can stop someone from comboing off while you get to prepare for you're like in the next turn be able to win or something. So I don't know. I think this it's something that is gonna see some play in CDH. Maybe not
I don't think it'll see play in CDH.
really.
It's exile target non-land permanent, right?
So it removes anything. Yes,
Yeah.
it doesn't exile any spells or anything, but it does exile a permanent outright. And it still makes it so that it costs two more to cast. And what I do think is cool about that is that a lot of CDH decks, if you're not playing something like green or something that's generating a lot of treasures like a Dockside Extortionist, um, this can cripple somebody's play because there's a lot of decks that I've noticed that tend to be really mana intensive in CDH. So you're kind of playing with exactly the mana you need to combo off, and then after that, all you got is free spells. That is how you keep interacting after you've tapped yourself out.
Maybe I'm biased because I play a very 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 much a mana generating deck
Yeah,
in Kaikar. So I always have too much mana, not
exactly.
enough to do with it.
But for example, if I'm playing something like Gale, which I actually built recently, Gale, Waterdeep Prodigy, or basically any deck that runs Thoracle combo that doesn't include green, like let's say Thrasers and Timna, you are going to be strapped for mana, and you are going to have exactly the mana you need to combo off.
Yeah.
So I think that Soul Partition, again, it's not necessarily going to work against every deck, but I think it's definitely worth running in certain levels of play. And in more the more casual the format gets, at least in my very humble opinion, the less use I see for Soul Partition though,
Yeah.
because you're just at the end of the day, what are you going to do? Oh, exile the super huge beater that someone's coming to your face at with? Cool, they're just going to probably cast it next turn anyways. Or if they're a super Timmy deck, they're probably just going to cast it outright. Oh, we got a comment over here from Mecha Geek PR. What's up, my dude? Hello, hello, hello. I'm glad to have you join us for the show, man.
But any other card you're particularly interested in?
At least for the time being, nothing that comes to the top of my head that we haven't already really mentioned. Of course, there's Urza. There's the 4 mana Grand Abolisher. Everyone, I've seen a lot of opinions on social media that they're super happy that this wasn't a
2 mana. Yeah.
two mana cost. Um, Liberator Urza's Battlethopter, I think it's cool because it's essentially a better
Shimmermere.
Shimmermer, exactly. Is it Mir or Mer? I like calling him Mer because then when you say Mer, it's Shimmermer. It sounds funny. I enjoy it.
I've said Mir token, but
oh, look at that! Somebody else popped up. Arnaldo, what's up,
hey,
my dude? I'm so glad you get to join us. We haven't seen you in so long. Oh man, unfortunately, y'all came in right when we were about to wrap this whole thing up. I do gotta say,
yes.
but just go just let's just scroll through some of these cards, see what we're getting. We're getting the other Cycle of Pain lands, which I think is freaking fantastic. Both of the Titanias are freaking amazing. There's two Titanias, right? Because there's there's this one and there's another one that's
yes.
shout out to my boy almost what's it called? I freaking have the card image in my head, but I forgot the name of the shout out to Wormcoil Engine's cousin over here, Phyrexian Flesh Gorger. I hope that sees some play in Standard, just because having something reminiscent of some of the stuff we've seen before in Modern is always a cool little throwback that you get to see while you're playing. Definitely, there's nobody sleeping on Teferi Temporal Pilgrim. All of the Urzas are amazing, so that's just another reminder. Just get your hands on all them Urzas and all them Mishras. They're all freaking amazing. I don't know. There's not a lot of things that I can bring off the top of my head because again, I'm
covered
excited.
most of them.
We've covered most of them, and again, I'm not exactly excited for like all of the tools the set is really bringing into the table. I think there's going to be some really cool stuff, um, like for standard, but at least for commander, like there's some fun stuff going on. Fortified Beachhead being another cool thing that's going to be popping up around there. Little soldier deck. And Arnaldo over here, which says technically I saw JP last week. Well, you know what? I didn't see JP last week, so screw you. And I love you, and I hope I get to see you soon, Magic. But I think that would be all for tonight. There's hopefully some really fun stuff that more news that we're getting tomorrow, because that usually is the way it happens. Every time we make an episode of the podcast. I got lost in my brain for a second, but I think it's also very important to mention, guys. I hope that everyone that's here, so that includes Arnaldo, Mecha Geek, and anyone that's going to be listening to this podcast, to join us on November 16th, because we're going to have the amazing Lua Stardust join us for some fun Commander Knights gameplay for a magnificent free-for-all. And don't forget, we have a store, we have merch, we have amazing shirts that are made by our amazing friend and co-host John Ramos. We got here the biggest example here being the Only Lands revolutionizing your mulligan. It helps us out. It helps us out a lot over here at the Cardboard Cave podcast, so we can keep making more and better content each and every single day for all of you guys. And at least for now, I think that's all. I think that's it. So we'll start wrapping this up. JP, you got any additional words for the viewers and listeners of the podcast?
Check us out in Ultra Sleeves. Use our affiliate link and the promo code Cardboard Cave MTG, and you can pimp out your cards.
Yeah, my dude. And as always, remember, you can find both Orengo and John and all of the rest of their amazing podcasts. You can find them over in the Movie Guy. You can find them over in Subtitles Required. You can find where else can you find Orengo? You can find them on Google, which is like the biggest highlight. But where else? 15 of Richport.
Cinemas podcast, his own personal podcast.
You can find JP and I here in the Cardboard Cave podcast. You can sometimes find me on my Twitch doing some fun stuff over at Crisscross13. And as always, just join us next time. It'll be fun, I promise. Interact with us on our social media, and if you ever want to come along and join us for a Commander Night, just shoot us a message and we can all play together. I hope everyone has an awesome rest of your night, and we'll see you all in the next one.
Hey, do you like Magic the Gathering? Myself as well loves Magic the Gathering. Well, I have the podcast for you. How about you join us at Cardboard Cave MTG Podcast? We are in all social media and audio platforms that you can enjoy. You can join us as well when we go live every Wednesday at 9. Like that, you can join us, comment below, and we can go ahead and have that conversation together. Plus, after that, we have Commander games and arena content coming your way. So if you love Magic the Gathering as well as we do, just go ahead, look us up as Cardboard Cave Podcasts.